On a scale of 1 to 10, and we're talking trash talk scale, if you will, how big a deal was that comment, those remarks? And Skip Bayless, I'll start with you first.
Stephen A. Smith, before the show, I wrote down that on the trash talk scale of 1 to 10, I considered this about a 6. After I heard Peyton Manning's very pointed, sarcastic response back to Richard Sherman, I go all the way up to an 8 on the trash talk scale of 1 to 10. I think this is becoming a pretty big deal. Now, the reason I was ready to give Richard a little bit of a pass here, this was something he wrote in a blog about a month ago.
Right.
And while in a very complimentary context about Peyton Manning, he did say that he throws ducks, quote unquote. And I thought that even though this was written before Richard Sherman was Richard Sherman, who has exploded upon America, it was still an arrogantly disrespectful thing to say about a man who was in the midst of shattering every passing record for an individual season, for a man who I consider the most accurate passer since Joe Montana, arguably the most accurate ever. And I didn't think Richard completely owned it yesterday when he was asked about it, because he basically said, well, and I'm paraphrasing, he doesn't always catch the laces cleanly off the shotgun snap, so he doesn't have a great grip on the ball when he throws it, even though he is accurate. But what put me up to the scale of 8 is that I thought Peyton would just shrug this off this morning. He did not shrug it off. He wanted to respond to Richard Sherman. And he basically said, yeah, I've thrown a lot of touchdown passes that were ducks. Well, that's true. So I'm going to say that I don't think Pete Carroll will love it that Richard Sherman did this a month ago. I think it will cause a little bit of distraction. I think it will light a little bit more of a fire under Peyton's Broncos teammates. And so I'm going to say it's a pretty big deal.
I have no problem with it being a pretty big deal as long as we don't take sides, as long as we don't use this as an excuse to malign and denigrate Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is not some bench warmer that's never going to go up against Peyton Manning. Richard Sherman will be on the field Sunday evening with going up against one of Peyton Manning's primary target, whether that's Demaryius Thomas or anybody else. As he said, anybody that lines up on the left side, he'll be there waiting for them. The reality is that when you're in the heat of competition, and you are on an island and you are willing to stand front and center and back up what you say, which clearly Richard Sherman is willing to do, and every NFL player we've spoken to has authenticated that, then I got to give him credit for that. I also respect the fact that Peyton Manning responded the way that he responded, as opposed to being typical PC, say the right things, don't engage in any kind of bantering whatsoever, whatever it may be. Peyton Manning is a Super Bowl champion. He's a guy that's passed for nearly 65,000 yards in his career with a career rating of 97, for crying out loud. This dude is a first ballot future Hall of Famer, considered widely to be maybe the greatest regular season quarterback to have ever played this game. This is his 3rd Super Bowl he's going to be in, and rather than back away from insults or challenges or whatever the case may be, he's reminding you that there's blood sifting through his vein, that he's a human being. He's got 4 neck surgeries. He's had to go through what he went through. There were numerous questions about whether he'd be able to throw the football effectively when he came back, and whether he'd ever have the same velocity, and even if he did it, could he be effective? So what does he do? 2 consecutive 13-3 seasons this year. 55 touchdowns, just 10 interceptions, 5,477 yards passing, eclipsing Drew Brees' single-season record. The 55 touchdowns eclipsed Tom Brady's single-season touchdown record. This dude is breaking records. And what he's saying is, Richard Sherman, you better ask somebody. You can talk all the junk you want, but sure, they were ducks, but they were touchdowns, and it is what it is. And by the way, I might throw a few more ducks this Sunday, and it might be coming your way. So you've got Peyton Manning saying that, and you've got Richard Sherman saying, bring it. How could you want anything more for a Super Bowl?
But are you saying you have no problem with what Richard Sherman wrote a month ago?
Well, no, because he was being honest. He's a football player that's out there on the field defending against some of these guys. He's watching tape. He's watching film. He's watching games. He's not a bench warmer. He's not a scrub. And people obviously reminded Peyton Manning of what he said Super Bowl week. At that time, you don't know you're going to meet up with Peyton Manning. You possibly anticipated it, but you don't know for sure because you had games to play in the postseason. But still in all, in the end, all I'm saying is I like what Richard Sherman and Peyton Manning did. I have no problem with what either of them did. I can understand that Pete Carroll did. Last time I checked, my name ain't Pete Carroll, and neither is yours. We ain't making $36 million as the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. With, you know, I mean, that's the bottom line. Let them have a problem with it, but let's not make it something where we use it as an excuse to malign Richard Sherman. This is the Super Bowl,
right, and
we want cats that's going to go up against one another. We should applaud the positions of both.
Okay, remember, on Monday, I actually encouraged on this show for Richard Sherman to go ahead and say what he wanted to say about Peyton in the context of, I dare you to throw at me. Go ahead, I'm not going to give up a touchdown pass to you, because that's more of a challenge. This is an insult to me. This is where you cross the line into disrespect. That's why Peyton responded. If Richard had said, Tuesday Media Day, Peyton, I dare you to throw at me one time, the way Kaepernick dared to throw at me one time in the championship game, that would have been great by me. In fact, that would have been consistent with the way Richard writes checks that he has to cash come game time. This is over the line into the insult category, which is why I don't love it.
Well, they can't worry about what Skip Bayless loves. I mean, look. What I'm saying is that you don't love it. If you don't love it because you're rooting for Seattle, then that's different. I'm saying that as a fan, looking forward to a big-time game, wanting guys to perform on a big-time level. I love it when guys open their mouths and place themselves in a position where they must perform. You don't get to hide. That's what I love, and that's what I'm seeing.